Table Talk, an open and honest discussion about different topics related to faith.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Table Talk. Thank you for joining us. Come and take a seat at the table with us as we talk about different topics and have different guests. And this week, I've got Stephen Newton with me.
What's up?
And I've got Joshua DeWald. So this week, we're talking about Bible imagery and Bible references throughout different books and different movies. But specifically, we're going to be talking about C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. So to start off, why don't you tell us who your favorite character is and what your favorite book of the series is?
Nice. My favorite character is Peter from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because he takes on this this kind of leader role whenever Aslan's not around, and he just kind of looks out. He just takes care of everybody. And then my favorite book is The Silver Chair, book number 4. It's number 4. It's number 4.
Okay.
I haven't pulled up.
I was
Yes,
super
it's number
confused
4.
to what you're doing. All right, book number 4. What about you, Joshua?
So my favorite book is Prince Caspian. My favorite character is Reepicheep, partially because his name is just really fun to say, and he's also kind of like he's like a warrior and stuff, but he's like a smaller character and stuff, so it's kind of funny almost to see him just like he's really good warrior, so he's absolutely like destroying the enemy and stuff.
Tiny but mighty, right? Yeah.
Never mind. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Anyways, I guess we'll jump into the next question then. So what are some examples that you found within these books of biblical imagery, biblical references, things that you see that connect the book with the Bible? What are some of the things you've seen or that you've read, I guess?
I myself found the biggest connection between the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus in the first book, at least. Aslan in the books is portrayed as a lion, and just that kind of gives the kind of idea that Jesus is this powerful animal, this big, yeah, that makes sense, yes.
Big, powerful, mighty animal.
Animal.
Yeah, it's literally called the lion in the Bible.
Yeah.
I guess we'll move past that. Anyways, go ahead.
So Aslan in the book gives up his life for Edmund because he was captured by the White Witch, who's kind of like the Satan character in this book. So he gives up his life, they trade out, and Aslan goes and dies. And when this happens, they sacrifice him on a stone table. And this is symbolism for two things. One, the cross that they sacrifice him on, and also in the book it says that after they've killed him, it rips it or it cracks in half. So that's kind of symbolism for the veil tearing in half. That's another one I found. After he's been killed, Lucy and Susan, two of the sisters in the book, they come and kind of mourn over his body because he really has been their best friend throughout this book up until now. And they kind of represent the Mary and Martha couple in talking about the Bible. So those are similarities that I found.
Yeah, and adding on to yours, the White Witch and her army, they all thought this was an amazing victory, like the Roman leaders.
Oh, yeah.
But then they are very surprised, and they end up losing the battle that they were in when Aslan comes back. And another thing was, like, when Aslan entered Narnia, the powers of the White Witch, she had made it always winter. And when Aslan entered Narnia, it became spring. It shows how when Jesus comes, when Jesus is near, he defeats all sin, all darkness, all evil.
I like that part about the Roman stuff. I hadn't thought about that before.
I didn't think about that either. Yeah, nice. So, next question. Have you ever noticed these images or these ideas in other books that you've read or other movies that you've seen? Like Lord of the Rings specifically is one that I have read and watched and is my favorite series of all times. All times.
All times. Wow, that's pretty big. That's crazy.
Yeah, and great wording of that. But it's one that you can see very clearly that there's stuff taken from the Bible. And it's mostly because Tolkien and Lewis were a part of a Jesus group back in the day. But you can still see those references to the Bible. So what are some other things that you've seen throughout some other things?
So in the very last book of the Harry Potter series, it really stands out because in the final battle, Harry sacrifices himself to save the others, because what the deal that Voldemort had made is if you turn yourself in, nobody else will get harmed. So he sacrificed himself and died. Well, later he comes back, and Voldemort is like the Satan character in this. He comes back and defeats Voldemort and takes the darkness out of the land.
For me, I found a similarity in Lord of the Rings. In this story, if you haven't seen it, and have you seen Lord of the Rings?
No.
Okay, so basic story is they've gotten this group together, the Fellowship, to get rid of this this ring that pretty much holds the power of evil in it. Pretty much, they get rid of that. They destroy the main power source of. What's his name? Help me out.
Sauron?
Sauron? Yeah,
Sauron.
Okay.
I didn't know what you were looking for, so I was waiting for you to ask.
So one of the main characters in the Fellowship is Gandalf. He's this wizard that comes along with them. And at one point in the book, they're attacked by this big fire demon. What's his name? Balrog. And Gandalf gives his life to save the Fellowship. He kind of takes on the demon, allowing everybody to escape. And what happens is Gandalf pretty much fights to the death and defeats the demon, but he comes back, and he comes back as Gandalf the White, because before he was Gandalf the Gray, so he came back like more powerful than before.
One of my favorite things in the Lord of the Rings books, or I guess the movies, in the last one specifically, you can see one of the other characters of the Fellowship, Aragorn. He's a ranger from Gondor and pretty dope, pretty good warrior. And he's kind of like the leader, but he goes into a crypt, like a very old crypt of a former king, I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly. And they're just ghosts just walking around. And Aragorn ends up fighting the king and is trying to convince him to come and fight with them. And to me, that kind of shows the same kind of reference of Jesus. You know, when he died, he went into death. He went into the crypt, and he fought Satan, and he's still doing that now. But he fought off that ghost that of sin for us. And when he does come back again, he will bring that army with him, like Aragorn did to fight off Sauron's army. So that's just one of the kind of images that I see throughout the book of, Aragorn went into the crypt, into death to fight, similar to Jesus. But anything else? Any other?
I've got another one. It's from Stranger Things, actually. This one is talking about the Upside Down, the Demogorgon. That all symbolizes hell and Satan. Would you agree? Would you agree with that one?
Yeah. Sure.
And 11 plays the Jesus character. She uses her powers pretty much to take on the Demogorgon. And then I kind of tied together that the kids that follow 11 around, they're kind of like the disciples. They follow her around, and they just become this big gang like the disciples and Jesus in the Bible.
Yeah, that's not one you typically think, but it does share the same imagery and share the same kind of concept of you have a main character with all this power and all this kind of mystery behind it, which is kind of what you see Jesus has and what people are searching for is answers to who Jesus is. And then he's got this close group of people with him, just like 11 has the guys, the boys. I don't know what you would call them. Do they have a group name? I don't think they have.
I don't think they do.
Yeah. But anyways, they have that group, and it's just tight knit. It's a community of people. So yeah, I never even really thought of it that way. But I guess it shares that imagery, shares that connection. So next question. How have these fictional stories helped you understand the character of God, or understand the gospel any better?
So, in The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Aslan dies to save Edmund's life, so it will show that he is very selfless, and he'll do anything to save you, even risk his own life. And it also says that he is not a tame lion, but he is good. It's like how God has a reckless love to bring you to him.
For me, I found that when we read the Bible, we find the characteristics that are portrayed by Jesus, and that gives me a fantastic foundation just on what the Bible says. But for me, I trying to find just more characteristics of who Jesus is. Just seeing a character played out, Aslan being the Jesus character, just leading all these people into battle against Satan and everything, it helps me just kind of envision what Jesus is kind of like more, from just adding on what the Bible says to another perspective.
So
It just gives me a little more to think
a
about.
better understanding
Right.
of, like, if Jesus was in front of you, it kind of gives you a little bit of that look of
Yeah, see, yeah.
probably wouldn't be a lion,
Right.
but it gives you that kind of, I guess, that picture of that presence that Jesus has anytime, at least in the movies when you see him. I guess kind of in the books too, you can kind of feel it whenever Lewis has written it. But when Aslan's around, it's like that powerful, like, you don't want to do anything wrong or say anything wrong. It's just kind of like he's there. He's got like a majesty, a power about him, and it's just radiating off of him. And to me, I kind of see that would be like how Jesus is, especially being one of the disciples and always being around him. You're just constantly seeing that power and that majesty, and you're experiencing that just radiating off of Jesus and that knowledge that he's just constantly pouring out. And I don't know, that kind of ties it in for me of, you can see it in a lion, which is something we typically see as like, don't go near that. But it's tame, but not tame, but good. And you can see that power, that connection between Jesus and Aslan. And that's just kind of a cool way to see it for me. Anything else? Any other?
So, like, as you were saying, when, like, people are in his presence, like, it says in the book that, like, Peter felt, like, extraordinarily brave, and Lucy felt, like, she felt very comforted and stuff. But Edmund, who early in the book had betrayed Peter, Lucy, and Susan, his siblings, he feels like nervous and scared, and it shows how Satan and demons and sin and all the bad things are when Jesus is around.
Cool. Any other thoughts? Anything else?
I don't think so.
Cool. Then we'll move on to the next question. Do these stories help you see that Christianity doesn't have to be this kind of stale and boring ritual or something that we're just doing to do? but that it's an exciting story and it's something that is compelling and something that you can get behind, and that it doesn't have to be just something that we've heard a bunch of times, so it's kind of just getting boring, but that you can see it in different ways and still be excited about it.
Like, when you see it in literature or movies or shows, it gives you a new perspective almost, where you can kind of see that, like, it can be entertaining and stuff. Like in this, I enjoyed reading it, but it's almost like the Bible or the Gospels in disguise almost. It just adds a new perspective.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. I'm trying to playing off what you said. People, whenever they read the Bible, it's kind of a hard read sometimes. But you can get the same story across, or the same message across, in other types of literature. So they take what happens in the Bible and they put it into a book and add a few more extra elements to kind of spice it up a little bit. And you still get your message across. It's more enticing. It's something new. It's not your, hey, this is the Bible, you should read it. It's just something new. It's not being shoved in your face, but you still get the same message.
And like with it being entertaining and stuff, you might have like a friend or somebody who doesn't enjoy going to church and doesn't know like about all of, like the Jesus of all the Gospels and stuff. You could tell them to read this, and you would be telling them it's pretty much them. They're learning about it without knowing. And
that would be a good, if they do read it, that would be a good gateway to kind of introduce them, like, hey, you read this, here's what it was symbolizing. And it just kind of opens a door for you to start talking about Christianity.
Do you think that might be something that we should kind of lead off with if we are recommending this as a book to somebody who may not be a Christian or may even be against Christianity? Do you think you should probably lead off with, hey, this is a book that's famous, but it has biblical imagery and shares a lot of the stuff from the Bible? And do you think that would be good, like a good thing to share with people, or do you think you just kind of see how they deal with it and then introduce it to them, or and then let them know that, hey, this is a book that involves some imagery with Jesus in it?
For me, I would let them read it first and then tell them about it.
Same.
Just because I think if they are against Christianity, then if I tell them, hey, this is a book that kind of symbolizes it, that might give them some doubt and think, hey, I don't want to read it if that's what it's got in it. So let them read it first. Maybe they enjoy it, and then you can tell them. You can actually get them to read it first.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Any other thoughts about biblical imagery within literature or within movies, things like that? It doesn't even have to be about Chronicles of Narnia. Any other thoughts? Anything else you can see? No? Well, even for me, in seeing things that in movies and literature, there's a Netflix series out called Messiah, and it doesn't even really, it doesn't share the same kind of biblical imagery, like showing like Aslan to Jesus. It doesn't have that kind of thing, but it still has that biblical connection and kind of that, it shows how things would be if we were to see Jesus come back, and how we would treat it now.
In present day?
Yeah. So, even things like that don't touch specifically on the Bible or specifically like translate from, you can see this exact thing in Matthew 4. Like, they don't have to translate that way, but you can still see biblical things in other shows and movies and books, whether it's, just a casual, like, we're looking at if Jesus was to come back. that's talked about in Revelation. Like, are we seeing those signs? Are we seeing the things like that? Are we following what we see from Scripture? Or, it can be in something completely random, like Power Rangers. I don't know. That was the first thing that came to mind. Like, you can see, there's leaders, there's followers, there's close-knit communities. Like you said with Stranger Things, there's a bunch of different things that you can see in a bunch of different movies and books that may not have that direct connection like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe does of, this is Jesus, this is Satan, this is, the temptations of Edmund, this is Mary and Martha with Lucy and Susan. Like, it doesn't have to always be that, direct, here's the Bible, here is it just shaped in a different way. It can still be in an abstract way, like you said with Stranger Things. So I think that, we tend to kind of look a little bit past that when we're watching shows, and that we don't always think like, oh, that is a biblical reference. That's, something that we can potentially connect and see the Bible in a different way. But there are things out there. There are things that we can see with different things within the culture. But yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you guys for joining me. Any last thoughts? Anything at all? No.
If you've got time on your hands, we're all at home. If you can maybe get your hands on one of these books, give it a read. They're pretty good. Sure. See if you can find some of your own similarities.
Yeah. There's even, if you don't like books, if you don't like reading, if you're not like Joshua and you can't read a book in 5 hours laying in your backyard, then you can watch the movies even. It may be a little bit different, but it's still the same kind of story, same connections, all that good stuff. So yeah, if you've got some time, which you do, give these books a read, give the movie a watch.
It's on Disney Plus.
Oh,
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Is
It's a Disney movie.
It is?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
it is.
Fun fact for you as
Crazy.
we end the episode. I had no idea that it was on Disney Plus. Wow.
The first one and the second one.
Really?
Might be watching that.
Prince Caspian.
Yeah. Might
but-
watch that tonight.
Which one has the talking horse?
The talking
The
horse.
boy and his horse.
No, it's Horse and His Boy.
The horse and his boy.
It was.
It's not a movie. They only made 3 movies, right?
Yeah. It was
Witch in the
Lion, Witch,
Wardrobe?
and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and I'm pretty sure Silverchair. I don't know that.
No,
but
it
it
was-
would have been Dawn
Voyage of the
Treader.
Dawn
The
Treader.
Dawn Treader,
Oh.
yeah.
That's the best one.
And then they didn't make any more movies after that.
I don't think so. I think they stopped,
Yeah.
which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Disney, get on that if you're watching.
But if
More,
you're
4 more movies.
All right, so again, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for coming and taking a seat at the table. Please leave a comment down below if you have a topic you'd like for us to touch on. Please send me a text or Tim a text to kind of let us know what you think about the podcast and what you're thinking about where this should go, what you'd like to see. So, again, thank you for joining me. See you guys on the next Table Talk. Oh, bye.
Goodbye.
Wait, did we double-handed it?